One of the unspoken steps it takes to being a game collector is to get into retro hardware, or the previous generations of consoles you didn't grow up with. It's a big deal the first time you get to do it. I chose the Super Nintendo. It was retired before I was sentient, but the legacy of the SNES library was inescapable online, so I had to pick one up. But I was pretty limited on cash since I was a kid with a monthly $5 allowance. I was only able to fund my video game expenses with birthday and Christmas money, so whatever I bought had to be worth it. But there was one pricey Super Nintendo game that caught my eye. Kirby's Dreamland 3. It was like $70. Price trending says $30. That's cap. I asked my dad to buy a cheaper Super Famicom copy on eBay, and then I was going to modify my SNES to play it. I got the game, the console was on the operating table, and then I pussied out. Like, I don't want to risk messing this up. I'm only 13. These scissors are right-handed, bro. So I returned the game. Shout out to my old man for not making me cough up $10 on shipping and taxis for being a bitch. But the real kicker to the story is that Kirby's Dreamland 3 was on the Wii Virtual Console for $8, and I was too stupid to check for 2 years. But I lucked out since the Kirby Dream Collection dropped on the Wii. So the reason I wanted to play Kirby's Dreamland 3 as much as I did stems from a few things, like the art direction. The soft shading and color pencil look literally drew me in, but what grabbed my attention more was this brown rectangle, the health bar, a courtesy in all Kirby games. But what made this one special was that it looks identical to Kirby 64's health bar, which is the Kirby game I grew up with. All the classic Kirby games have a lot in common with each other, but I've always paired these together like one's a remaster of the other because they're too damn similar, yet they're drastically different games. Let's take the copy abilities as an example. This game has 8, while Kirby 64 has 7. Well, there goes my thesis. What sets these two further apart is that Kirby 64 lets you combine elements with each other for an additional 28 abilities, while Dreamland 3 put its foot on the table and says, here's 48. Dreamland 3 doesn't let you combine elements, but instead has the animal buddies who Kirby can ride, and they take advantage of whatever Kirby's got going on in that mouth. There's Rick the Hamster, Coo the Owl, and Kind the Fish, who originated in Dreamland 2, and they're joined by newcomers Nago the Cat, Choo Choo the Octopus, and Pitch the Bird. You'll be spending a lot of time with these critters since the game doles them out every level, and I like these guys. They're cool. Comparing to Yoshi, who is the poster boy for Superpowered Horse, the animal buddies are superior in most situations because you don't lose them when you get hit, and they all have unique quirks from one another, like Rick can climb walls, Coo dashes around the air, Kind swims faster, Nago can triple jump, Choo Choo can latch onto ceilings, and Pitch does its best. Your mileage in all 6 will vary, but Rick and Nago are the easiest to use, especially since they play pretty similarly to Mario, as they trade Kirby's float for the ability to jump on most enemies. Rick controls better in the air, but Nago's triple jump has much more utility. Kind is like the quirky, not like other guys version of these two, playing the same, but controlling the worst. Coo is ridiculously overpowered. Not only can you skip most obstacles by avoiding them, but he also has the most useful arsenal when it comes to copy abilities. And between Choo Choo and Pitch, they have some really gimmicky attacks. Pitch is a blast to mess around with, but his attacks can be pretty sluggish or hard to aim. And Choo Choo isn't particularly flawed, it's just that someone's gotta be the least best, and I've decided for all of humanity that it's the pink octopus. But yeah, for most of the game, expect to be using the animal buddies. I mean, you don't have to, but then you're just outing yourself as the type of person who finds it thrilling to not donate 60 cents a day to sad dogs. Oh, and I would know. And I like how frequently the game lets you swap them out, since it's a nice pace breaker. Nothing like a guilt trip every 5 minutes to cleanse the soul. Well, it's actually really nice, since this game has 30 levels, so there's a ton of opportunities to synthesize animal buddies and copy abilities. My personal favorites are Bucket is like playing neutral in Smash Bros, and this one just reminds me of a scene from Ed, Edd n Eddy. What also incentivizes trying out different combinations are this game's collectible. Returning to Kirby 64 again, that game has 3 crystal shards hidden in each level. Some were out in the open, unbothered, moisturized, happy, in their lane, focused, and flourishing, while others were hidden behind elemental blocks, or rewarded for being a mini-boss or solving a puzzle. As a kid, I found every single crystal on my own. Except for one. Using a vague picture of a pizza, umbrella, or top hat, you were supposed to decipher that the room of blocks in the next screen had to be arranged to match the picture. impossible. In my review, I said I'd like to come across another puzzle as vague yet as clear as this one that I could try as a smarter adult. Well, I forgot Dreamland 3 in its entirety is full of these puzzles. This game's collectible is the Heart Star, and one is hidden in every level, each requiring a specific function to be completed to obtain, so no freebies. At the very least, a special noise plays when you're in the room a puzzle is in, but these tasks can be all kinds of obtuse. Some of the easier ones come from levels in each world following trends, so the first level will always involve flowers. Like in World 1, you have to avoid them, but in the third world, you gotta make those fuckers go extinct. Sometimes the challenge is to use an attack on the flower, but simultaneously not destroy it. In World 4, you need to use the clean ability, but since most characters release a dust cloud in their attack, the puzzle comes in discovering who won't harm the flower. Actually, the puzzle comes in googling the solution, because the game doesn't do a good job telegraphing that clean is the right ability. The third level in each world will always feature a memory game. If that was too fast for you, maybe try not to be a bitch. And then the fifth level always requires reaching the end with a specific animal buddy, which is an alternative way of saying Rick needs to get his nuts slurped. So with those levels, you can usually figure out what to do, but the other missions are erratic. Dust the floor, touch this boob-headed goblin with the octopus, collect shapes. What the fuck is this? Honestly, most of these are easy to figure out with a bit of trial and error. And look at that, a softball version of 64's block puzzle. The most noteworthy missions involve cameos from other Nintendo games. All-stars like Goku and Chao from Yu Yuki make an appearance, and who could forget Donby and Hikari from Shin Onigashima. In 5-3, you have to defeat Kametos from Kid Icarus, and at the end of the level, Samus is just chilling out. What a strange combination. 3-6 implements its characters in such a neat way. There's a pyramid full of chambers, and hidden at the end of most of them is a part of Rob, and if they're all collected, Rob will be assembled at the end of the level alongside Professor Hector. And this level, man, it's gotta be my favorite in the game. One of the chambers has all 6 animal buddies and enemies of every element, so you can toy around mixing and matching them together to see which combinations are required to get the Rob pieces. The amount of freedom here makes it really satisfying when you find the right solution, and it has me interested in seeing this style of puzzle solving at a larger scale where maybe each level features different assets to combine to keep it from getting stale. Kinda like escape room games. And while they're not the objective, some puzzles use these elemental blocks and the height of the animal buddies in creative ways. Like here, kinda's too big for the tunnel, so Kirby needs to run ahead and create a path. Or in this instance, the tunnel lets you see who is required for the puzzle, making you backtrack to get him. And I mentioned it with the flower dusting level, but I like when puzzles require a particular copy ability that can't be solved with every character. The only other time it's really notable is with this doorway blocked by ice you need to melt, and only a couple characters have a fire attack that aims downward. Some levels have mini bosses in them. The difficulty varies on what copy ability you currently have, but most of the time you can spam whatever your attack is and be on your merry way. But the final level throws them all into a gauntlet in what is both one of the game's best and worst levels. On a normal playthrough, not worrying about the heart stars, yeah. This is a fine penultimate trial. All the animal buddies are available at the beginning, and you do all the fights with small health refills available after each one. But if you're going for the heart star, you don't just need to beat each boss, you also need to eat them to collect their copy ability and break elemental blocks guarding these feathers. The problem is that eating them can be a challenge in itself. Especially the umbrella guy. The way this level is designed, you'll either have the rock ability or nothing. And not only are the rock attacks some of the worst in the game, but the animation to get out of the attacks takes forever. And the way mini bosses work is that they spontaneously combust if you touch them after they die. And since the rock is a close range attack, more often than not, the boss's corpse will land on you and explode before you can get out of the way. And I just love when I get rid of my ability so I can eat the boss, and then I swallow it and my old ability at the same time, and the game defaults to giving me rock again. So I need to replay the entire level again. So you think, okay, let's just get rid of the rock ability because it's not working out. This is worse. The only way to attack the umbrella is to wait for it to throw its sandal, and my god, it just refuses to do that and instead hops around or goes into this long attack where it bounces off the walls, which by the way, the tall animal buddies suck at dodging. For the love of God, make like I'm George Bush and throw the fucking shoe already! Level's pretty easy after that. I'd say the world bosses step things up properly, but don't revolutionize from older games, and comparing with other Kirby games from this era, including 64, it's amazing how repetitive this series is. Like Acro, Addo, and DDD hardly changed from Dreamland 3 to 64, and bosses like Wispy Woods and Pon and Con do little to evolve themselves from Dreamland 1. And then there's the final boss, hidden away as a reward for collecting every heart star. I barely discussed this in my review of Kirby 64, but it's uncanny how many games in this series feature a final boss that plays nothing like the rest of the game. Ah yes, the skill test I wanted. Silver Surfer. And of course, to put another nail in the coffin on Kirby 64 comparisons, this game has you fight Zero, while the sequel slaps a 2 at the end of its name. Actually, I don't want to stop the comparison there. You straight up kill Zero in this game. Fovea, Sclera, Cornea, all of it. And in Kirby 64, Zero 2 is borderline a Seraph. This has me super curious about not only the concept of death in the Kirbyverse, but also the inspiration for bringing Zero back. I try to avoid sounding edgy whenever I can, but I love how gods and angels have so much moral ambiguity in fiction that they can be presented as an ultimate good or bad. Typically we associate them with good, but then you have Good Boy Kirbo killing one, and suddenly this is the most hardcore video game franchise that we openly recommend for babies. And speaking of baby games, Dreamland 3 has co-op. A second player can join the adventure with Gooey, the ZKH bomb. Back when I was picking over which Super Nintendo games to buy, the option for multiplayer was definitely a big factor for me, since this was around the point where my sister and I would play these sorts of games more frequently, and Kirby's Dreamland 3 is one of those co-op games that works really well for casual play. Gooey is functionally identical to Kirby, but he can be exploited for a ton of heart stars. The best benefit for me is being able to warp to Kirby when the two characters spread apart too much, which allows some puzzles to be bypassed entirely. The memory minigames increase your odds of success tenfold by letting you input 2 answers, boss fights get easier since Gooey can act as a meat shield if Kirby's health is low, and having a second copy ability is a plus too. The last step to note is the bonus content. There's a memory minigame gauntlet and a boss rush that are available after beating the game. Clearing these are actually required for a 100% completion score on your file, so this time I went ahead and got the flex. I like how these changed up the environments for each location, which is a concept I would have liked to see explored more. And if you fail during the boss rush, a unique illustration for whatever boss won acts as the game over screen. I loved these so much, I went ahead and collected them all to show you guys. And there's one more mode called Jumping. Most Kirby games have some form of this minigame when a level is cleared to let you heal up or potentially get extra life. As you'd expect, Dreamland 3 and 64 are identical, but in this game there's an endless mode where the more you succeed, the more accurate you need to be. The character select screen, oh my god, imagine what dystopian society we'd live in today if this was used for the base game. There needs to be a sequel that lets us use the animal buddies without Kirby. But all things considered, Kirby's Dreamland 3 is a solid game, but a very forgettable one. Coming from someone who's played Kirby 64 a dozen times and this game like 4 times, I don't think Dreamland 3 does a lot to excite me with its levels, and that's a shame, because look at this map. This should be a polarizing world, but all I feel is apathy. Kirby 64 executes Dreamland 3's ideas with greater success, and this could be an effect of having 3D environments and more saturated colors, but its levels stand out so much more. So while I might have backed out on owning this game physically all those years ago, perhaps it was the right decision. Thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a like to help the channel grow and subscribe to get updates on my uploads as soon as they happen. But until then, I will see you all next time.